What happens when a popular TV host decides he's had enough of carefully scripted royal narratives? The studio buzzed with the usual morning energy, producers giving last-minute cues, cameras sliding into place, the audience settling in with eager smiles. Kelly Ripa glanced at her notes, her bright on-air persona firmly in place. Beside her, Mark Consuelos adjusted his earpiece, giving her a quick nod. "Welcome back to Live with Kelly and Mark," Kelly said cheerfully as the cameras went live. "Today, we have a very special guest. She's been making headlines around the world, and we are thrilled to have her here. Please welcome Meghan Markle." Polite applause filled the room as Meghan entered the studio, her posture regal and movements deliberate. She wore a cream-colored blazer that shimmered under the lights, her smile polished and practiced. She took her seat gracefully, projecting the image of calm confidence she had perfected over years in the spotlight. "Meghan, thank you so much for joining us," Mark said warmly. "Thank you for having me," Meghan replied, her tone even but measured. "Though I have to admit, some of the pre-interview questions felt surprising. I hope this will be a respectful conversation." Kelly's smile faltered ever so slightly. "Of course, we always aim for respect, but we also believe in honesty with our viewers." "Honesty," Meghan repeated, her eyes narrowing just a fraction. "That's an interesting word coming from a show known for celebrity gossip and morning fluff." The audience shifted uncomfortably at the jab. Mark leaned forward, refusing to let it pass. "We cover a lot more than gossip, Meghan. But since you mentioned honesty, there have been several interviews where you made very serious claims about your time with the royal family. Do you still stand by everything you said?" Meghan's smile froze, her tone sharpening. "I shared my truth, Mark, my lived experience. Isn't that what good journalism is about? Allowing people to share their stories?" Kelly's voice cut in, firmer now. "Yes, but when those stories involve serious accusations, especially against people who can't respond publicly, there's a responsibility to provide evidence." "Evidence, Raquel?" Meghan's voice rose slightly. "You want evidence of emotional abuse? Of racism?" "Not everything can be captured in photos or documents, Kelly." The audience grew silent. This wasn't the friendly morning show chat anyone expected. Mark kept his composure, but his tone was firm. "But Meghan, these weren't just personal grievances. These were allegations that hurt reputations and relationships. And some of your statements, well, they've changed over time." Meghan's head snapped toward him. "Changed? Or maybe you're just uncomfortable with a woman speaking her truth." Kelly leaned forward, her expression serious. "Or maybe the truth isn't as consistent as you want people to believe." The tension in the room was unmistakable. Meghan's eyes darkened, her posture stiffening. For the first time, her flawless composure seemed to crack. And that was only the beginning. The studio was so quiet you could hear the faint hum of the cameras. Meghan's smirk returned, but it felt strained now, a mask slipping out of place. "So, this is what you wanted?" Meghan said sharply, her gaze darting between Kelly and Mark. "Another chance to question my integrity on national television? Another opportunity to paint me as the villain?" Mark kept his tone calm, but there was an unmistakable edge to his voice. "No, Meghan, what we want is clarity. You've done multiple interviews, Oprah, Netflix, various podcasts, and every time there are new revelations. People notice when the story keeps evolving." Meghan let out a humorless laugh. "Evolving? Or maybe I've simply chosen to share different parts of my experience at different times. That's my right." Kelly folded her hands neatly on the desk, her posture perfect, but her voice firm. "It is your right, but when you accuse people, especially people who can't defend themselves in the same way, you have to be consistent. Accountability matters, Meghan." "Accountability?" Meghan shot back, her voice rising. "Where was the accountability when the royal family ignored my pleas for help? Where was the accountability when the tabloids smeared me day after day?" Mark leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "That's exactly why people have questions. You've said you were silenced, yet here you are, interview after interview, documentary after documentary. That doesn't look like silence to most people. It looks like control of the narrative." That word, narrative, made Meghan's composure falter further. Her lips pressed into a thin line, her jaw tight. "You think I wanted any of this?" she asked, her voice shaking now. "You think I enjoyed being chased out of a country, losing my family, enduring constant abuse?" Kelly didn't move. Her eyes stayed fixed on Meghan's. "I think you've learned to turn your pain into a brand, and you don't like being called out on it." Gasps erupted from the audience. Meghan's head snapped toward Kelly, her expression a mixture of fury and disbelief. "You're disgusting," she hissed. "Both of you. You sit here on your cushy talk show, profiting off gossip, and dare to judge me?" Kelly finally stood, her voice sharp but steady. "We're not judging you, Meghan. We're holding you to the same standard as anyone else who makes public claims. Truth matters. Consistency matters. You can't have it both ways." Mark stood as well, his jaw set, his presence commanding. "Meghan, this isn't your personal platform. This isn't your fairy tale. You don't get to control the questions or the answers here." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Meghan's face flushed red, her mouth opening and closing as though she couldn't decide whether to shout or walk out. "You," she stammered, pointing at Mark. "How dare you talk to me like that? You have no idea what I've been through." Mark didn't flinch. "You're right, I don't. But I know manipulation when I see it, and I know when someone expects applause instead of accountability." The audience gasped again, the tension now unbearable. Meghan took a step back, visibly shaken but trying to regain control. This is an ambush," she said, her voice trembling. "I thought this would be a conversation, not a public attack." Kelly's tone turned icy. "Conversations involve honesty. You don't get to rewrite history without being challenged. Not here." Meghan's eyes darted around the room, as if realizing the audience was no longer on her side. The polished Duchess façade was collapsing, piece by piece, live on television. And everyone watching could feel that the breaking point was getting closer. The tension was unbearable now. Meghan's hands trembled as she tried to steady herself, but the mask had slipped too far. The audience could see it. She wasn't the calm, regal Duchess anymore. She was cornered. "You think this is journalism?" Meghan snapped, her voice rising. "This is character assassination. You're just another pair of talking heads, pretending to care about accountability while profiting off my pain." Kelly didn't flinch. "No, Meghan. This is asking questions that millions of people want answered. Questions you've avoided in every interview because you control the narrative." Meghan let out a harsh laugh. "Narrative, narrative, narrative. You keep using that word as if I spent years planning some elaborate scheme. I survived. I built a new life for my family. And you dare to sit there and reduce my trauma to a storyline?" Mark stepped closer, his voice cutting but calm. "What we see is someone who tells a new version of events each time the cameras are on. That's not survival, Meghan. That's manipulation." The word landed like a punch. Meghan's face went pale, then flushed with rage. "Manipulation?" she repeated, her voice trembling. "Everything I've endured, everything I've suffered, and you call it manipulation?" "You've had more airtime than almost anyone alive," Kelly said sharply. "Silenced? No, Meghan. You've been amplified. Every time you've spoken, you've shifted the story just a little more, and people are finally noticing." Gasps rippled through the audience. Meghan stepped forward, pointing a shaking finger at Kelly. "How dare you? How dare you question my integrity, my pain, my children's safety?" Kelly stood, matching her energy but keeping her tone controlled. "Because you brought it all into the spotlight, Meghan. You don't get to claim privacy after cashing in on every intimate detail." "That is vile," Meghan spat. "You have no idea what it's like to be me. No idea what it's like to live through what I've lived through." "You're right," Kelly replied coldly. "But I know what manipulation looks like, and I'm not afraid to call it out." Mark's voice dropped to a level that carried more weight than shouting ever could. "Meghan, this isn't your fairy tale. This isn't a platform for you to rewrite history while silencing anyone who disagrees. This is our show. And here, the questions don't get scripted for you." The studio audience collectively gasped at the line. Meghan's jaw dropped. Her composure shattered completely. You, you arrogant, she began, but her voice faltered. Mark didn't look away. This isn't your story to control anymore. Meghan took a step back, her face a mix of fury and disbelief. For the first time, it looked like she didn't know what to say. The power dynamic had shifted entirely. Mark and Kelly had taken control, and Meghan was losing the battle in real time. The audience could feel it. The end of this interview was going to be explosive. The studio felt like it was about to explode. Meghan's breathing quickened, her eyes wide with a mix of fury and panic. Every camera was locked on her, capturing the moment her carefully crafted composure crumbled completely. You sit there, acting so righteous, Meghan spat, her voice shaking. But you're no better than the tabloids you claim to despise. You profit off gossip. You build careers off other people's pain. And now you're trying to humiliate me. Kelly finally rose to her feet, her eyes fixed firmly on Meghan. Her voice was calm, cold, and cutting. No, Meghan, we're holding you to the same standard as anyone else who makes serious accusations. The difference is you expect applause instead of questions. Meghan let out a bitter laugh. Questions? These aren't questions. This is a public ambush. I came here thinking we'd talk about meaningful issues, and instead, you just wanted to drag my name through the mud. Mark stepped in, his voice low but powerful. We're not dragging your name through anything, but when you spend years sharing private details about your family, switching narratives and blaming everyone else, people are going to ask why. The audience gasped audibly. Meghan pointed a trembling finger at him. How dare you? You know nothing about me, about my pain, about what I've given up. Kelly didn't budge. And yet, you've made a fortune telling the world about it, piece by piece, interview by interview, and every time the story changes just enough to keep you relevant. Meghan's face flushed red. You vile, disgusting people. You think I wanted this? You think I enjoy living like this? No, Kelly said sharply, but you've learned to use it. You've learned that being a victim sells, and you're angry that people are finally starting to see through it. Meghan staggered back as if the words had physically hit her. The audience collectively gasped again, murmuring in disbelief. You're monsters, Meghan whispered, her voice trembling. Mark's voice cut through the room, calm but devastating. No, Meghan, we're the people who finally told you what no one else would say to your face. For the first time all morning, Meghan was silent. Her lips parted as if she wanted to respond, but no words came out. The audience could sense it. This interview was spiraling to a point of no return. Kelly stepped closer, her tone final. If you can't handle real questions, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews at all. The studio fell completely silent. Meghan's hands balled into fists, her entire body shaking with anger. And everyone knew the end was coming, and it was going to be explosive. The studio was silent, the tension so thick it felt suffocating. Meghan stood frozen, her chest rising and falling rapidly as she stared at Kelly and Mark with pure hatred in her eyes. You think you've won, she hissed, her voice trembling. You've sat here, attacking me, tearing me down, humiliating me in front of millions. But you're no better than the people who destroyed me in the first place. Kelly's voice was steady, almost unnervingly calm. No, Meghan, we just refuse to let you spin another version of your story without being challenged. And you can't stand it. Meghan's lips curled into a bitter smile. You think this makes you look strong? It just proves you're part of the same machine I fought so hard to escape. Mark stepped closer, his voice low but commanding. No, Meghan. It proves that not everyone is going to sit back and let you rewrite history to make yourself the hero. Meghan pointed a shaking finger at him, her voice cracking. How dare you? You have no idea what I've sacrificed, what I've endured. Kelly cut her off, her tone like ice. And you've told the world about it, again and again, until it became your brand. You don't want accountability, you want applause. Gasps erupted from the audience. Meghan froze, her jaw tightening, her eyes glistening with fury and humiliation. This, she stammered, this is disgusting. I thought you were different, but you're just like all the rest, people who can't handle a woman refusing to stay quiet. Kelly didn't move. No, Meghan, we can handle you just fine, but this interview is over. You need to leave. The words hit like a thunderclap. Meghan blinked, stunned. You're kicking me off your show? I'm protecting my show, Kelly replied firmly. You can walk out on your own, or security can escort you out. The audience gasped again, some covering their mouths in shock. Meghan's face went pale, then red, her lips trembling as she tried to form a response. Fine, she said at last, her voice bitter and shaking. But don't pretend this was about truth or accountability. This was about power. And you've just proven you're exactly like everyone else who silenced me. She turned toward the exit, her heels clicking sharply against the studio floor. Just before she reached the door, she looked back one final time. You know what the real tragedy is, Kelly? Meghan said, her voice cold and cutting. I actually respected you once, but you're just another fraud. Just another person who can't handle the truth. Kelly didn't blink. The truth doesn't need a new version every time someone asks a question. Meghan's face twisted in fury, but she didn't speak again. She turned and walked out, the studio erupting in shocked murmurs as the cameras stayed fixed on Kelly and Mark. Kelly straightened, her face composed but her voice firm as she looked into the camera. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Everyone knew nothing on morning television would ever be quite the same again. Clips of the moment would flood social media, headlines would explode across the world, and Meghan Markle's most disastrous interview yet had just been burned into live TV history.